We started off looking for ghosts and demons, and we found out that happened to be 100% real. Now, we are looking for UFOs, Bigfoot, and otherworldly beings. We will prove to the world that otherworldly beings exist. So get ready. This is Researching the Paranormal. Otherworldly.
Okay, Illinois, actually, you can go down there that way. I've taken that trip several times on my motorcycle. Anyway, back in 1849, a group of miners, they were Mormon miners, were making a trek across the valley down there, and they decided that they would spend the night down in Dayton. Well, since they were miners, they start mining down there, and lo and behold, what do they find? They actually find gold down there in Dayton, 1849. For those of you that do remember, I wasn't alive then. Everybody was on their way to a place called California. They were all going to California. They were all going to be millionaires in 1849. So those miners who actually had found gold down in Dayton up and left when the pass opened up that year. 1859, another group comes along, and they're a little smarter. There's 5 people in their group, and they start mining down there, and they find gold down there. They also find this ugly green and gray stuff, and they keep throwing it away because it fits in their shovels. So they make their way up this canyon right here, and they find the big shaft, and it is full of golden gold. It's about 12 feet across, about 8 feet deep, and they go in about 10 feet, and it's the biggest piece of material that they've ever discovered. So they dig into it, and then they make their way up this canyon. It's called 6 Mile Canyon today.
6 Mile Canyon.
One of the people in that group was a man named H.T.B. Comstock. And Mr. Comstock became a millionaire in later life. Therefore, it is now called and named after him the Comstock Lode. So if you look over here, you see this huge tailings pile right there. At one time, that was the deepest shaft in the entire world, 3,276 feet deep. It was so deep they had a guy named Alexander Graham Bell came here with his brother, and he installed a telephone system in there. It was the first telephone system in the state of Nevada. At the 1,800-foot level, as they were digging down, they found water that was 190 degrees. Well, they wanted to chase all the gold and silver which went down, so they bought 4 of the biggest pumps they could buy in those days. They pumped out 5 million gallons of water out of there each and every day. Pretty tough mining conditions. So what did they do to those miners? They paid them $4 a day. What could $4 a day buy you? Well, $4 a day could buy you a steak dinner with beans that cost 25 cents. If you wanted to have a dessert with that, it cost you 30 cents. If you wanted an egg, it would cost you $1. If you wanted to buy a tent here, it would cost you $10 per month. So that money, one of the other conductors worked out, is equivalent in today's world to $54 an hour. That's how much money the miners here in this area actually made. I get to direct your attention up here to the right, and there's a water tower up there. It is the first water tower ever put up there that is not really a water tower. It is the only one that AT&T has ever built. That's an AT&T cell phone site up there. I pointed out because somebody asked me on a train, how does the train get water from that water tower up there? Well, it doesn't. Anyway, since they installed that, we have great download speeds out here in Virginia City. So as we start to come up on tunnel number 5, there were originally 7 of them. Tunnel number 5 was daylighted, which means you blew the top of it off. And then in the 1960s, the state of Nevada built a road across the top of that. That road is the Highway 341, which brings you up to Virginia City from the Carson City side. Now I'm going to point out the fact, as we go under it here, it was a government job and it is not attached in any way, shape, or form to the road which is above it. I guess that's what they mean by a government job. Now, if you look over here to the left, you see the Ward Bullion Shaft, which is right here.
Look at that, baby.
Would you believe me if I told you that everybody who was a partner in that, all 3 of them, ended up being multi-millionaires, and not any of that money came from that shaft. They went down 2,800 feet, and they started go over to California, and they start a rumor when they get over there. Please take your seat, thank you. They started a rumor over in California that they'd hit the big one. 3.5 weeks later, they paid $3.7 million in stock on that mine right there. They come back to Nevada, they hire a bunch of miners, tell the miners that they hit the big one. They send them all back into town here in Virginia City. The information gets over to California again. They go back a month later and they sell another $3.2 million in stock on a worthless mine. When everything we look over here in this beautiful Nevada ravine, you look at the trees and you go, those are beautiful trees. Is that what built Nevada? Absolutely not. Every bit of the homes, the mines, all that wood came from one place, came from Lake Tahoe. And how did it get here? It only came one way. It came on the VAT Railroad. If it came over Highway 50, Schooner Summit, or it came what is now Interstate 80, and it came down the flumes over there. But these are kind of important trees to the indigenous people who lived here, the Paiutes and the Shoshones. These are pine nut trees. Anybody know what we use pine nuts for today? And pesto sauce. If you go into the market here, it's $25 a pound for them. Anyway, they survived on those pine nuts as well as the bobcats that lived here, other wild game that lived here, and they actually survived here at the 6,200 foot level. Now we are going to be going into tunnel number 4. Tunnel number 4 is the narrowest tunnel. Please keep your hands and arms inside at all times. This was hand dug. It is 410 feet long, and it took them 500 days to dig it with a pick and a shovel. No dynamiting was used. For those of you that are afraid of the dark, just close your eyes. One time going through here, we had a bobcat in here. The next time we saw the bobcat, we had 2 kittens with her. Another time we had a mare in here with her foal, and from time to time we have had to stop the train because of them. They are protected by the federal government. This road right here was the original toll road going up to Virginia City. If you had a mule, it cost you 25 cents. If you wanted to take your horse up there, it was 50 cents. As we start to come into Gold Hill, at one time 7,000 people called Gold Hill home. Today only about 70 people actually live in Gold Hill anymore. If you look really closely over there, You can see this brown area right there. That brown area is the original Gold Hill Cemetery. When I moved here in 1968, I went over there because I'm interested in cemeteries. I found a headstone over there. It was from 1859. It was truly amazing. Somebody asked me on one of the trains a few years ago if they were still selling plots. I did not know the answer to the question, but I said, as far as I know, people are still dying to get in there.
Right.
That's the only joke I tell on the whole train. Anyway, I'll tell you about that later. As we come into Gold Hill, sadly, 39 miners lost their lives here in Gold Hill. And the worst mining disaster in the history of the state of Nevada. Here's the story. The fire breaks out at the 800-foot level. They are down at the 2,500-foot level. It takes them 2.5 years to extinguish the fire. Why did it take so long? Because there are 750 miles of tunnels underneath this town.
Oh, wow.
Every bit of wood in that mine shaft burned because it was fed oxygen for 2.5 years. When they did bring the bones up, they only brought 35 sets of bones back up. But because it was a good mine, they wanted to rebuild it. So they did. It cost them $400,000 to rebuild the mine. And so that they would never lose any miners and therefore lose more money, they encased every bit of wood in 4 inches of concrete in that mine. And when we get over to Gold Hill, I'll show you the remnants of that. Now, Gold Hill was quite a town. This was the Bank of California right here, this building right here. There was also a very small school here. A newspaper was here for a very short time. This is the original depot as we go right here. There was actually a mercantile store as well as an assay office. This depot here, a very famous person came here. His name was U.S. Grant, Ulysses S. Grant. And he came here with his family not once but twice. While he was here, he was handed a cigar. He did not smoke. But the story goes that he was nice to the man who put the cigar in his mouth. Everywhere he went as president from that day forward, he was given a cigar. Sadly, he passed away 22 years later of throat cancer.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, we are going to be stopping here in Gold Hill for a very short time. I understand we have people who are very familiar with Gold Hill, but I'll tell you the stories I've learned. If you look right here at the headworks of the Yellow Jacket mine, those are 18-inch beams right there, and they're coated in concrete right there. Would anybody like to move from the outside inside or 154? And they would get liquored up. They would then walk across the trestle. Well, the trestle was 410 feet long, and it was only a 189-foot drop. But I don't know about you, when I used to drink, I didn't walk very well. Some of the people didn't make the trip very well, and some of them perished. Also, people had come to Nevada, and they were seeking fame and fortune and money, and they didn't make it either. And the story goes that many of them took their lives by sadly jumping off over there. So that leads me into the next story. And the ghost people will like this story. This is a true story. My wife is into ghosts. She loves ghosts. I am not into that. I don't believe in any of it. So we are here, and they're shooting one of the shows here for the cable show. And it was maybe 15 years ago. I don't remember the exact date. We are enjoying an adult beverage at the bar. Suddenly my wife jumps up and says there is a ghost touching my neck. And she starts screaming and she runs out. Being married 38 years in those days, I followed her out. Let me see, get me out of here is all she kept saying. She'd already opened the car door. Drive. Finally, and if you were astute, I said the name of this earlier, the Yellow Jacket Mine. I lifted up her hair. What was on her neck? There was a yellow jacket on her neck. We saw no ghosts whatsoever here. And she was very disappointed, but she refused to go back in. I've told that story for quite a while, actually. And then I have had people that are on the train who've told me a story or two. They said, if you spend the night in the Gold Hill, you spent the night there, the doors open for no reason, the beds move during the night. One lady told me that they were there with their young 2-year-old who was in a crib. This is a number of years ago now. The door slams open in the middle of the night. There's something staring at them in the room. They grab the kid, they run out, they leave. They spent the whole night outside in their car because they were afraid to go back in. The proprietor, the owner of the place at the time, the next morning they went and they demanded their money back. And he said, no, I can't give your money. Oh, okay. So he said, you're actually lucky. If you'd been in room number 2, the bed moves all night long. So that's the story that they told me. I do not know if that's true, but I just passed it on. The woman who told me this story looked me right in the eye, and she looked as honest as the day is truly long, because she got scared when she said, I grabbed my daughter and I ran through it. She said it was the coldest thing she'd ever felt in her entire life. Like she was suddenly in a deep freeze. All right, well, let's get everybody seated back down and we'll head on back to Virginia City.
We're staying at the Gold Hill in the miner's cabin, and I have a 23-year-old son. He's there now, and last night as he's laying in bed, something pushed him out the bed. He woke up on the floor.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I can use that, right? I'll use it. Because there were so many people that lived here, everybody asked me if this is a mine. It actually is not over there. You can see the concrete with the door right there. They needed food for the 7,000 people that lived here and the 45,000 people that lived in Virginia City. That shaft goes in 800 feet, and they would slaughter the animals down in Washoe Valley, bring them up here, and they'd hang them in there, as well as the fruits and vegetables they needed for all those people. And that was the place. And there was an armed guard on those doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because they didn't want the food being stolen. All right, let's go ahead and we'll take our seats. I'll tell the engineer we're heading on back. So as a thank you to those brave firefighters, by the way, this bell right here came from the Virginia City fire. They thanked the firefighters here for spending 2.5 years extinguishing the fire up there. If you're interested in history, this big peak right here is McClellan Peak, and it's named after General McClellan from the Civil War right there. The peaks over here, the other direction, are actually, that is Heavenly Valley Ski Area for those of you that do any skiing. We love to see snow on those because that snow melt ends up being our drinking water in the summertime. So we like it when we get snow really like this. I meant to mention it, we actually just went by tunnel number 3. Tunnel number 3 sadly collapsed.
Yeah.
They were a group of men that worked in here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to keep this open. 50 trains per day went from Virginia City down to Carson City and back each and every day. The reason they did that is they liked money. The Bank of California owned this railroad, and the main constituents, the main stockholders, made $100,000 per month in dividends from this train. That is equivalent to $2 billion a month. That is why they wanted this train to move each and every day. I guess they were a little greedy, huh?
I'll show you how. And a guy accidentally killed himself in this.
Laying in the bed at night. The other night.
24 by 12s.
I'll be by your side as we investigate. Let's see.
And we have different investigators for like.
Something about Nancy.
That's enough to make you what?
That's on the side. Something that hangs around town and makes you want This is Researching the Paranormal. Other World